Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Shayar's Voice. And today I have with me Rashi, who's an independent researcher on the partition of India in the events of 1947. Rashi did her bachelor's in sociology from Delhi University, if I'm right. And she's also worked with Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed. That what I got from her LinkedIn. And if any of you don't know, Ishtiaq Ahmed is a renowned professor and probably an authority on the events of partition. And his work, his books include one on Jinnah, which I've heard about, I've not read it, and then Punjab and everything surrounding the partition. So let's start. Rashi, if you would just like to tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and yeah.
Sure. Hi, thank you for having me, Shari. So I'm based in New Delhi. I'm 23, and for the last 2 years, I've been researching on the partition of India. As you said correctly, I studied in Delhi University, and so after my graduation, I really got into this work because my family also came from Lahore during partition. And just out of curiosity, I decided to explore the topic and just as a personal exercise. And it just kept on growing and growing and increasing. And it's been 2 years, and this is what I do full time at the moment.
Okay. Could you tell us a bit more about, if you know the specifics, where in Lahore, and if you just in the small bits, events, us waqt, how did your family
Sure.
move? And let's just start with that.
Definitely. So, honestly, when I started this work, it was right in the beginning of COVID, March 2020. And I decided to work on a piece about a dupatta, which my great grandmother had carried from Lahore during partition. And so I would really got into this work to find out more about the dupatta and about my great grandmother. They lived in an area called Banpura in Lahore, that's near Shalimar Bagh. And they also had my grandfather's father lived in Model Town in Lahore.
Okay.
So I started this work only to find out about their story, about what happened at that time. and I came across documents, papers, and what had actually happened was a couple of months before partition actually took place, that is in June 1947, my great great grandfather, that is my maternal grandfather's father, he was murdered during the riots in Lahore during partition.
Okay.
And after that, my family decided to move to their model town house, where my great grandfather lived, just because it was better, it was easier for them. So it was basically my grandfather, was the youngest in the family, his elder brother and his elder sister, and their mother. So they moved to this house in Model Town, and as you must be knowing, the houses in Model Town are massive.
Yeah.
Especially in those days, they
Pretty
were
big.
huge houses. And so yeah, they were living in one of these houses, so my great great grandfather Prabha Singh Bhalla, he decided not to move during partition. So because a lot of people felt that that they can stay back during partition, it's their land, hamara ghar hai, so hum chhod ke kyun jaye. So that was his idea as well, and he decided to stay back. But what happened was basically that around beginning of August, a Muslim family which had migrated from Jalandhar in the Indian Punjab decided to migrate to Lahore and move into that particular house in which my family was living.
And there was no just show up, मतलब उनका घर थोड़ी था.
Precisely.
Okay.
So वही था, उनका घर नहीं था, and there was no adult male in the house. I mean, who was able? My great great grandfather was there, but he was in his 70s by that time, so he was an old man by that, and so he couldn't really do anything, and nobody in the family could really do anything. So for about 2 months, my grandfather is Sikh. So for 2 months, my Sikh family lived with this strange Muslim family whom they'd never met before and didn't know anything about, in the same house. And they lived side by side because there was no other option, because my family didn't want to leave their land, and this family had just migrated and they needed a place to live. So they just parched in, and they kept on living in that house for about, and after around till September. And so in September, there were apparently floods in Punjab around in September, and from there onwards. And during those floods, the Indian government had sent trucks for evacuation of people from the northwest frontier province. जो आपका खैबर पख्तूनख्वा एरिया है अभी. But because of the floods, वो trucks आगे तक नहीं जा पाई थी, and they stopped somewhere in Lahore. And when those trucks stopped in Lahore, my family got into those trucks, taking a few things, and फिर वो उन trucks में Jalandhar आए थे. And Jalandhar आए, which is again in Indian side of Punjab. And Jalandhar में आके they lived in a refugee camp for a month. And वहाँ से some members of my family came down to Purana Killa. That is particularly my Nana ji, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, his sister, and his mother. So they came down to New Delhi. They had some family over there, and eventually they settled in the refugee camp, in the Purana Killa refugee camp, जो आपके central Delhi में है. And over there, it's a massive monument. वहाँ पे there were not only refugees coming from Pakistan, but also people who decided to leave India for Pakistan. So both who were staying in the Purana Killa refugee camp, and even in Humayun's tomb, which was turned into a refugee camp. So, and wahan se, then they eventually were given accommodation and they settled down and they restarted their life again. So this was a bit.
Yeah, it's a pretty fascinating story. Just
Yeah.
to ask something about that, मतलब जब आपने कहा कि a Muslim family from Jalandhar,
जी.
how out of nowhere उन्होंने कहा चले बस हमें लाहौर जाना है और लाहौर में भी मॉडल टाउन में ये स्पेसिफिक घर है बस हम इधर जाके शिफ्ट हो जाएंगे. Was it like were they like distant relatives और वो community का part थे, या वहाँ उस वक्त ऐसे हो रहा था कि बस मुस्लिम इधर आके किसी भी घर पे कब्जा कर लें और यहाँ से हिंदू जाके किसी भी घर पे, इस तरह हो रहा था या?
Precisely. So उस वक्त इतना chaos था that people were actually, so one thing that everybody needs to understand about partition is कि जब लोग निकल रहे थे वो अपना घर, जायदाद, जमीन, property, family, jewelry, सब कुछ छोड़ के they were just taking little things and leaving their homes and thinking कि वो वापस जाएंगे. But very soon, even after crossing the border, many people realized कि वापस जाना impossible है. So they started looking for new places to live to, and उसी way में they started occupying any place that they found. यहाँ पे भी वही हो रहा था. Hindus and Sikhs who were coming from what is now Pakistan, वो ऑक्यूपाई कर रहे थे जगह, जो भी खाली घर मिल रहे थे मुस्लिम्स के, उनमें रहने लग गए. एंड सिमिलरली जो उस तरफ जा रहे थे लोग, वो घर ऑक्यूपाई करके उनमें रहने लग गए. So इसी तरह इतना chaos था कि nobody had any control and there was absolute lack of law and order. बहुत minimal था, जितना maintain हो पा रहा था उतना था, but it wasn't very stringent.
There were like two new states, कुछ नहीं पता, and like you've been living together for like I don't know 3,000-4,000 years, and suddenly you're like okay, just make these lines and all. Yeah, I understand that. Now, मुझे थोड़ा सा like moving on to your research. आपकी research specific to Punjab है, because if we in hindsight there were only two provinces that were actually partitioned. जो हम partition कहते रहते हैं, it was just Punjab and Bengal. And Bengal की तो partition 71 के बाद एक बिल्कुल ही different angle पे चली गई. But is it like specific to the partition of Punjab, जिसको आप लोग हमारे पंजाब को वेस्ट पंजाब कहते हो और आपके पंजाब को इंडियन पंजाब कहते हो, as like उस वक्त partition के टाइम पे I think?
So partition के टाइम पे it was just referred as West Punjab and East Punjab.
Okay.
But now तो सब पाकिस्तान, इंडिया पाकिस्तान उसी references में हो जाता है. So
Indian
अब जब यहाँ
Punjab and
पे
Pakistani Punjab.
जी, basically उस पे आ जाता है. So when I started my research, मेरा main focus था Indian Punjab, and then slowly I also got curious about Western Punjab, Pakistan. वहाँ लोग कैसे गए थे, and recently my main focus was Punjab as a whole, undivided Punjab, and further on divided Punjab on both sides.
Okay.
But now I've actually started to expand my research geographically, and मैंने अब सिंध पे भी focus शुरू किया है to talk to people who left Sindh during partition. Right, like you rightly said, partition, if you take it from the strict sense, तो पंजाब और बंगाल ही डिवाइड हुए थे, सिंध entirely पाकिस्तान को मिला था. So recently मैंने सिंध पे भी focus शुरू किया, research शुरू किया. So I've started talking to Sindhis who came at that time. And as you know, it's been 75 years since independence of both India and Pakistan and partition. जिसकी वजह से it's very difficult to find people जो इस time में migrate हुए थे, because we've lost many of them, and COVID have actually, led to more number of deaths. So because of that, I thought I'll expand my research geographically, talk to more people, and try to get a wider idea. I've also started talking to people in Pakistan. थोड़ा बहुत उधर भी मैंने शुरू किया है. I've been doing some online interviews. I really hope to visit sometime soon. But
same.
फिलहाल you must come. फिलहाल online है, and hopefully move to Bengal partition for 1947 to understand that aspect as well.
Sahi. Say great. This is great. And in fact, I feel like you're probably focusing on the right area. You told me हम इससे पहले जब कॉल पे बात कर रहे थे, you told me about Kartarpur and your visit to Kartarpur. थोड़ा सा उसके बारे में बताएं, because I have a lot of I've been there twice actually, so I have a lot of questions about Kartarpur as well. And because मैं तो बहुत आराम से चला गया था, because it's still in Pakistan. But आप बताएं, how was Kartarpur for you?
Kartarpur was actually amazing. Actually, Kartarpur के लिए एक backstory भी आ जाती है about some of my friends in Pakistan. I have some very close friends in Pakistan, and this also links to my family's history. I should have probably added this when I was telling you about my family, but I'll add it right now.
It's a conversation.
So what happened really was October 2021. एक साल job करने के बाद मैंने छोड़ दिया, because I realized I want to focus on this. I just quit my job. I have no idea what to do, but मुझे partition पे कुछ करना है. मुझे ये clarity थी सिर्फ. So मैंने Google form बनाया, Instagram पे डाला कि I'm looking for people जो partition के वक्त आए थे, and उन्हें मैं interview कर सकती हूँ कि नहीं. So around a couple of people replied, very few, but one guy was from Pakistan उनमें से, and so he told me that I can interview his grandparents, and I was like, ठीक है, cool, let's start with that. And what happened was I started talking to them. So before every interview, I tell my interviewees, for the lack of a better word, the more like family interviews is not the correct word, but still about my family's history, कि वो कैसे आए थे उस वक्त. And at times I mentioned the name, the number of the house also, and address also. And this is one of my first interview with someone from Pakistan. Online interview चल रही है, and in the middle of the interview, my friend Arslan, his grandmother, whom I was speaking with, Nahid Mansoor, she suddenly remembers कि जो मेरे grandfather का घर था partition के पहले, वो घर partition के बाद उनके रिश्तेदारों को allot हुआ था.
अच्छा, is that वो आपकी, I think, is that the one in Sialkot or?
No, that's different.
Okay, because I think I saw your story somewhere in Sialkot as well.
Yeah, so that was another small thing I did. उसके बाद.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great.
So in a way, so वो घर उनके रिश्तेदारों को allot हुआ था जो मेरी फैमिली का था partition के पहले. And उसके कुछ टाइम बाद उन्होंने मुझे अपने उन रिलेटिव से भी कनेक्ट किया जो अभी भी उस घर में रहते हैं. But the thing is, वो घर इतना बड़ा था कि उस घर को तोड़ के now there are 7 houses with the same address in its place in Model Town. And so then I got in touch with one of the owners. He was about 1 year old at the time of partition, but उन्होंने मेरे को बताया अपनी फैमिली के बारे में जो उन्होंने सुना था. And that's how I became such a good friend with this guy, with Arslan. And my conversation चलती रही. We still keep on talking about partition. So finally Kartarpur का plan बनाया, because that seemed like the only middle ground,
viable option. And वो भी अभी as of late, like what 2019
जी and COVID के बाद 2021 में वापस खुला है. So because of COVID बंद हो गए थे एक साल के लिए. So it seemed like a great option, great place to meet my friends in Pakistan, because और कोई चारा अभी उस टाइम पे था नहीं. So काफी ज़्यादा back and forth के बाद finally ये plan बना, and my dad and I decided to visit Kartarpur Sahib. I also sort of believe in Sikhism. Coming from a Sikh family, my family is not a big follower, but I somehow find myself, to believe quite a bit in it. So for me, it was a religious pilgrimage also, and a meeting as well with my friends in Pakistan. So इसलिए plan बना. We started off from Amritsar. Amritsar से we drove to the last village, which is Dera Baba Nanak, and वहाँ से the Kartarpur corridor started. On the Indian side, I was honestly very excited to visit Pakistan in any form, in any way, because it's, in a way, that's where my roots lie. That's the land of my ancestors, if I can say that. So वहाँ पहुँचे Kartarpur. I remember हम जब जाए थे, so we got like mithais and everything for our friends in Pakistan. वो सब लाहौर से ही आ रहे थे. So my friend came with his entire family to meet us, and वो सब लाहौर से आए थे. And I remember immigration, maybe they were asking मिठाइयाँ किसके लिए, मिठाइयाँ किसके लिए. मतलब दोस्त
अच्छा,
थे,
इंडियन
वो
इमिग्रेशन पे,
मिठाई खिला रहे
पाकिस्तानी
थे.
इमिग्रेशन पे?
Pakistani immigration पे. So we were
ओके,
just telling them कि
यानी आप
दोस्त
लोग
आ रहे हैं
मिठाइयों में
उनके.
आप लोग कोई लेटर्स वेटर्स और कोई स्पाई सीक्रेट्स तो नहीं लेकर आ गए? बट या ओके.
नहीं, they were actually joking and
ओके,
asking somehow, and they were very friendly.
या
So Pakistan immigration में, and they were check when they were doing a security check, तो उनका डब्बों में क्या है, तो हमने दिखाए. My dad actually offered कि आपको खाना है, खोल के आपको भी
या
खिला देते हैं.
ओके,
Like,
ग्रेट.
नहीं, तुसी जाओ, तुसी लेके जाओ. तो ये सिचुएशन था, but it was a lot of fun. So honestly, मुझे पंजाबी ज्यादा बोलनी आती नहीं है, but थोड़ी बहुत आती है, मैं सीख रही हूँ.
मुझे भी बस समझ आती है, बोलनी थोड़ी
जी
बहुत आती है, बस समझ आती है.
जी, बट somehow जब मैं वहां पे पाकिस्तानी इमिग्रेशन ऑफिसर्स के साथ बात कर रही थी, मैं ऑटोमेटिकली पंजाबी में बात कर रही थी उनके साथ.
ओके,
मुझसे हिंदी या उर्दू या इंग्लिश बोली ही नहीं जा रही थी. जस्ट स्ट्रेट अप पंजाब. I
ओके,
couldn't speak
ग्रेट.
any other language.
Maybe you
I
were
don't know
closer
how
to your
then.
roots. आपके अंदर से
Could be.
naturally पंजाबी आना शुरू हो गई थी और something like that. But yeah, okay.
Could be, probably. So ठीक है, so we did that. We got into the bus, and we reached Kartarpur Sahib over there. उधर हमें हमारे friends मिले, and हम उनके साथ बैठे. This was the first time I was meeting all of them, and it was, उन्होंने actually हमें पहचान लिया था. हम उन्हें ढूंढ रहे थे. So his mother was actually looking for us, and उन्होंने हमें पहचान लिया. And then we got to talking, and honestly ज़्यादा time नहीं लगा. Like almost immediately we could connect, we started talking about, क्योंकि in a
Yeah,
way connections बनी जाते हैं कहीं ना
yeah.
कहीं
You
से.
naturally connect. You gravitate towards them. Like, yeah, it's pretty natural.
जी, तो वो किया, and then फिर हम लोग ने साथ में बैठ के लंगर खाया, and वहाँ पे बैठे, we interacted, we chatted, we spent almost an entire day together, and it was such a surreal feeling. Okay, I mean, it's very difficult to put into words what I
Yeah,
was feeling
I
at that
get it.
time.
I get it. Even when
Yeah,
I went there, I could feel that as well. Did you also went around? क्योंकि हमें तो I think उधर नहीं जाने देते. वो जो असल गुरुद्वारा है जो हमेशा
जी,
से था,
गुरुद्वारा साहिब. हाँ
जो
जी,
सेंटर में है, उसके अंदर
जी,
I think we were not allowed. उसके अंदर हर वक्त
जी.
कुछ ना कुछ चलता रहता है.
हाँ जी, so उधर
भजन और
अंदर
something like that. They just like singing something.
अरदास, अरदास.
Ardas, okay. But
So
apart from that, there's this well जिसके अंदर वो
जी,
बताया गया है कि how he used to when Guru Nanak used to farm his land, तो वो well है. And then there's also a small pool sort of a thing. Pool बोल रहा हूँ मैं, I don't
सरोवर,
know.
सरोवर
Yeah,
कहते हैं
sorry.
उसे.
मतलब yeah,
No worries.
I don't know the indigenous terms. So मतलब it was a
जी,
small
जी,
pool. And then the on the right जहाँ पे वो किरपान है, किरपान बोलते हैं ना, the dagger
जी.
sort of a thing.
हाँ
किरपान के
जी,
पीछे जो fields हैं, I think if you stand at those fields, मतलब
जी.
इतना immediate नहीं, but you can see the Indian side. या आपको barbed wire थोड़ी थोड़ी smoke के पीछे
जी,
नजर आना शुरू हो जाती है, because it's like 3
जी.
kilometers I think वहां से
It's
उन field.
yeah, it's around 4 kilometers.
Yeah.
And even the Mazar Sahib, honestly, I had no idea कि Guru Nanak Dev Ji की मज़ार भी है. So I was just talking to my friend the night before. मैं अमृतसर पहुंच गए थे. हमने कहा हम लोग मीटिंग पॉइंट डिसाइड कर, and he said कि गुरु नानक देव जी की मज़ार पे मिलेंगे. I'm like, मज़ार? उनकी कहाँ से मज़ार आ गई? Then I started reading about it, because this particular aspect I didn't know that much. So I started
Yeah.
reading about it, and then I found out about the Mazar also. And yeah, we saw that as well. And अंदर गए थे, so अंदर हमारे जो गुरुद्वारा साहिब है, जो main shrine जो है, उसके अंदर you have the Guru Granth Sahib, that is the holy scriptures,
Mhm.
and you have ardas going on all throughout. But another fascinating thing that I noticed about realized about Kartarpur Sahib was everyone was so curious to meet an Indian, because
Yeah.
badges अलग-अलग होते हैं.
Yeah. So you
Indian
can
have
easily
a
tell हमारा red होता है, आप लोगों का yellow नहीं. Is it the other way?
yellow and blue होता है. Yellow and, I
Yeah.
think वो
And दोनों
पीछे
पे
change करते
यात्री
होंगे शायद.
यात्री लिखा होता है.
यात्री जी.
Yeah, यात्री लिखा होता है. I still have that badge with me somewhere. Yeah, मैंने इस्तेमाल किया
Oh,
है.
you managed to get it? Oh wow.
Yeah, I think I did, because हम पता नहीं किसी प्रोटोकॉल के थ्रू गए थे. And I
Okay.
also remember वहां पे जब आप अपने जूते डिपॉजिट कराते हो ना, I think इंडियन
जी.
साइड से यही होगा, तो वो ना आपको, वैसे तो वो सिक्स के लिए होता है कि वो आपको एक ऑरेंज रंग का वो देते हैं, तो वो भी मैंने बांध लिया था. And I got that as well with me as well. मैं वो लेकर आ गया,
Yeah.
क्योंकि मैं वापस
So
नहीं दे रहा, मैं लेकर
जी.
आ जाता हूँ. And it was very
That's amazing. So
yeah.
basically, it's mainly that you have, whenever since you're entering such a sacred site, you have to keep your head covered. That's the
Yeah,
logic
yeah,
behind it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
वही
yeah.
हो जाता है, yeah. So like even when I was walking in the Gurdwara, in the premises of the Gurdwara, there were people, if people are just coming and saying salam to me. And even inside the Gurdwara Sahib, baad mein, I think they were letting people from Pakistan also enter, a few people. And within that only, people just started having conversations with me. कि आप कहाँ से हैं, आप क्या करते हैं, हम भी देखना चाहते हैं इंडिया. And those things is quite, honestly, it's very beautiful because when
Yeah.
you think about it. And I was sitting in the premises of Gurdwara Sahib के बाहर उन्होंने seating area बनाया हुआ है ना, जमीन पे जहाँ बैठ सकते हैं. So I was sitting over there. Sorry, my
Yeah,
dogs.
no worries, no worries, no worries.
So I was sitting over there, and I could see the Indians and Pakistanis. They were just actually trying to find a way to sit with one another and have more conversations and chit chat even more. So
Okay,
that was
yeah.
actually quite wonderful to say.
Yeah, and I feel like even like for me, I was so curious about partition growing up, but the first time I get to live and like hang out and everything with Indians was when I came here. उसके अलावा क्या होता था, आप दुबई चले जाओ, आप like घूमने फिरने चले जाओ, वहाँ आपको Indians मिल जाते हैं and you naturally gravitate towards them. But पहली दफा when you come to school or like you go abroad to live for a while and then you're like, okay, it's pretty much the same. And people are still very curious. And now though I think due to internet and due to, I don't know, Coke Studio, cricket and all of these common themes, itna zyada connection ban gaya hai. People to people contact, जिसको कहते हैं. Yeah, anything like Kartarpur के बारे में, like what was your key takeaway from Kartarpur? Like, because आपके लिए क्या feeling होगी कि आप करतारपुर तक आए हो, but you always like आपके अंदर वो restraint भी होगा कि आप in boundary wall से बाहर नहीं जा सकते. So how is that like?
Honestly, while I was going back, when I was leaving Kartarpur, so wahan pe, so for us, we have this, you cross the border. And I think that's the only place where the gates of both India and Pakistan are open. When we were entering, when we were crossing the border, both the gates were still open, and while we were leaving, both the gates were still open. I think that's the only place where you leave the gates of the border open all through the day. You close it at night once, obviously
I think
the
it
time's
वो dusk
over.
पे dawn to dusk होता है ना, तो वो शाम में बंद कर देते हैं, something like that. Yeah.
So, but imagine all through the day, the border is open. And I remember standing over there. So Vapsi mein, I just stood at the border in no man's land for about 5 minutes, because for me it was so much to intake. Itna kuch tha कि I'm actually in a way on the land where my family lived, where my family actually formed their grounds, found themselves, and lived in this house, and that's all just history now. A history which I have been crazily enough trying to understand and make sense of. So in that sense, obviously Kartarpur Sahib, I feel that's the place jahan pe boundaries blur hoti hai, jahan pe Indians and Pakistanis unite ho sakte. I feel that's one place where you're actually in the Indian subcontinent, to say it in a pure sense, the undivided
the zero line
geographical land. Precisely, natural land.
Yeah, that's pretty this is very fascinating, because even I remember I've been to, when I was young, so I grew up in Karachi, but most of my family lives in Lahore, so we used to go to Lahore every summer and winter. So whenever I used to visit Lahore, that was just, I was a kid, and my only wish is that I want to go to Wagah border, and my family was like, "Bhai, itni dafa ja chuke." I'm like, "I want to go to Wagah border again." And I still remember, if you just know the right people, so you can just sit right in front of the gates, wo seats lagi हुई है for like VVIPs and VIPs, and then they take you to a small walk alongside the border, and it's like a small walk, and you can literally see the fields on the other side, and there's a little wire in the middle. And I still remember visiting Wagah again and again as a kid, and like उस वक्त मुझे बहुत fascinating लगता था, because उस वक्त तो कभी सोचा भी नहीं था कि मैं कभी इंडियन से मिलूंगा या बात करूंगा. But yeah, it's ये natural होती है curiosity. I think Indian side पे भी होगी और Pakistani side पे भी होगी, because like हमारा तो ये scene है, like our millennial, like my generation, and even like the Gen Z as well, and like coming people, like it's like पाकिस्तान में तो बहुत influence है. I'm not sure India में इतना influence है क्योंकि India के अंदर इतना बड़ा है और इतनी सारी वहाँ पे आपके पास mediums हैं. But पाकिस्तान में तो when it comes to entertainment, I think still 90% is Indian entertainment.
Okay. Oh wow.
So people grow up with everything. Like I've met people Indian movies 40 दफा देखी हुई है एक movie. So it's like, yeah, that's the sort of, and in fact I feel like कभी कभी ना थोड़े से इंडियंस थोड़े शॉक में भी चले आते हैं. You guys know so much about Bollywood and so much about cricket, and okay, you listen to this singer as well, and you listen to this singer. Like these are the only people we listen to. हमारे और कोई singers हैं भी नहीं. So, yeah.
जी. No, so in that sense, India में है like पर उतना ज़्यादा नहीं है. It's more for Punjabis, I would say, from what I've noticed. Who are curious, but not everybody. Like most people in my generation aren't that curious.
That's true. I was surprised as well because even I know a lot of Indians and like वो भी इतने ज़्यादा curious नहीं है कि बिल्कुल वो मतलब सब कुछ छोड़ के सिर्फ.
Very few.
Yeah.
I think I was like most conversation about partition जो मेरी होती है outside people who came at that time, apart from my research. About my research is more with people who are older than me. Okay. Hardly anybody who's my age. Because they're just not curious.
Yeah, that's true.
People aren't curious about it. For me, it was more about finding my roots, understanding it, and that just drove me and opened so many new worlds for me to, make sense of. And I just got, crashed into it, and I just went down and down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's true. Thoda sa about I got that from LinkedIn. You've worked with Ishtiaq and Professor Ishtiaq Ahmed.
Yes.
And I've listened to his podcast with different Pakistani podcasters pe bhi aate hain, and he has a certain view about partition and about Jinnah, and which pretty much holds true as well. Because उनका काम यही बताता है कि till the very end, आज जो हम इंडिया पाकिस्तान बांग्लादेश देखते हैं, that was something not to some extent those guys envisioned back in the day. To some extent, I think because उनका काम भी यही बताता है कि आज का जो पाकिस्तान है, that's more of a negotiated settlement with the stakeholders involved at that time. Because there's this view that थोड़ा सा controversial हो जाएगा, but I don't know, we should talk about it.
Not an issue.
This view that Jinnah never wanted the partition of Punjab and Bengal. He wanted the whole of Punjab and the whole of Bengal, because अगर आप geographically भी देखो, so that makes a lot more sense. Like if you are having Lahore, then you would naturally want Amritsar and Chandigarh and Jalandhar and like till the very end, matlab at the end of Punjab, right? Like, what was your experience working with him, and agar aapne unke saath kuch sikha ya takeaways ya something?
Honestly, with Dr. Ahmed, काफी amazing. That also happened by chance. My dad's also quite a bit into history. Okay. He doesn't actively pursue it, but he just likes to be aware about it and all the things. So he told me that maybe just write a mail to Dr. Ahmed, say if he replies and if he's up for it, if he needs some help with any of his work. So I just did that out of the blue, sent a random mail with my website link and all those details and about what I was doing. And luckily he was up for it. He wanted some help. So I was actually helping him with research on partition only. So he wanted details about the political aspect of partition. जो Indian side पे politics की discussions हो रहे थे, जो personal discussions हो रहे थे of people such as Nehru, Gandhi, to understand their perspectives and their views. So मैं उन्हें उस पे help कर रही थी. So my work was going to libraries, finding material. It was honestly really, really interesting and a very new experience for me to visit these libraries, because then I was actually getting access to proper documents on partition, about the conversations that were happening between these people about partition and about how to take it forward. So I learned a lot from him so I was working with him for a year approximately, and उसमें उनसे मैंने काफी चीजें पता चली about how to do research and in the secondary research, how to access documents, how to study and how to make sense of these documents, and how to actually apply them in your research and in bibliographies, and how to add those things. Because I study sociology, but it was more theoretical than practical aspects of it. So I really got to learn the practical aspect hota hai field work ka, apart from primary research, secondary research ka. So in that sense, काफी interesting था. And जी जो आप बोल रहे about partition, about the Ratcliffe line, कि yes, the Muslim League and Jinnah particularly, they wanted whole of Punjab and whole of Bengal because वो geographically otherwise divide करना पड़ता. So, which is what happened eventually, but that was also not quite possible because the population ka ratios ke issue ho jate. Because I mean, if you look at places like in many places, the ratio was almost the same, 49%, 50%. As ratios with it. Say in Lahore, it was almost 49% Hindus and 50% Muslims. So
Yeah.
because of these things, वो मुश्किल हो रहा था, and obviously like even other political parties also come in, such as Congress आ गई आपकी, then आपके साथ में महासभा से भी लोग आ गए, and Akali Dal भी आ गई. So when so all of these guys also had a political hold in all these regions. So जहाँ पे उस वजह से थोड़ा सा with the what happened was partition, because उसी way में लोगों को कर सकते थे, but nobody envisaged कि इतनी ज्यादा migration होगी और इस scale पे migration होगी और इतना ज्यादा violence उसके बाद होएगा.
I feel
So
like
that's something.
panic or chaos or अचानक I think naturally South Asians हम थोड़ा सा जज्बाती लोग हैं in general, like Pakistan, India doesn't matter, and I feel like at that time the chaos and because you were just fed this कि भाई you have to leave else you won't survive, your generations won't survive and all of that, and then Sikhs were there as well and the Hindus were there as well, and it's like this is so diverse. In fact, बहुत सारे लोगों को पता नहीं है, like, and I'm hope someone from India will be watching us as well, and I feel like there are areas in Sindh, like we have our Tharparkar area and we have Mithlika area and we have other areas as well, which kind of border आपके Rajasthan or Jaisalmer वाले areas, I think.
जी.
I'm not sure.
जी.
हाँ, because वहाँ से एक train भी चला करती थी until Mumbai attacks. उससे पहले तो वहाँ पे I think अभी भी चलती है, I'm not sure, because वहाँ के जो Hindu population है, they have these special permits. And they don't need a visa to go to India. And उनको कोई special status मिला हुआ है. I've met one of them as well, because क्योंकि उनकी family भी on the either sides of border रहती है. So we used to go back and forth as well.
Oh wow.
We have a lot of Hindus in our Sindh ke areas. Even in Lahore, so right across Badshahi Mosque, there's another Gurdwara. I think it's called Dera Sahib to nahi, मैं उसका नाम भूल गया हूँ. It also has a small sa golden
is it there's Maharaja Ranjit Singh Samadhi?
Yeah,
You're talking about that.
Ranjit Singh Samadhi, and मैं जब भी वहाँ पे गया हूँ, we were never allowed to go there, but recently when I went there, I did talk to a few people and we were let in, and
oh wow,
it's so beautiful कि आप देखते हो कि there's Badshahi Mosque, then there's the Lahore Fort, and then there's Ranjit Singh ki Samadhi, and then you also have, like, you can see Minar-e-Pakistan, which was basically Monto Park back then, जहाँ पे even Congress वहाँ पे events करा करती थी, Muslim भी वहाँ पे events करा करती थी. So I feel like it's so important to accept that diversity. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ Hindus और Muslims नहीं है. We have Sikhs, we have Jains, we have Parsis.
Precisely.
मतलब the Parsi community, it's either in Karachi or it's in Goa and some sort of in Mumbai as well.
Bombay also has quite
Karachi has a huge Parsi. In fact, Karachi has like 3-4 Parsi schools. One of our schools, my dad went to that school. That school is there since 1860.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's quite amazing.
That's the boys' branch.
Parsi school.
The Parsi school. That's the boys' branch. It's called BVS Parsi High School. It's called BVS means for Bhai Virbaiji something something. I'm forgetting the name. Sorry. And there's a girls' branch. It's called Mama Parsi. Both of these schools are 200 to 300 years old. 200 years old at least.
Wow.
We have colonial clubs. I'm part of one of the clubs as well.
Gymkhana.
Yeah, we have gymkhanas, and we have Karachi Gymkhana and Lahore Gymkhana. And Karachi Gymkhana is 1876. And the OG building, just building में हम अभी भी जाते हैं और बैठते हैं और खाना वाना खाते हैं. That's since 1876.
Quite amazing.
And those gymkhanas, there's still boards over there. उस जमाने के जहाँ पे एक जमाने में लिखा होता था कि I'm not sure what term क्या use करते थे, but like people were not allowed to enter. And
dogs and Indians not allowed.
Yeah, something like that. We still have those gymkhanas. जिसके अंदर you have to wear like some places. अभी भी if you go there, you have to wear like white shoes and button down shirt, and for women you need to wear closed shoes, and you can't wear shorts, and if you're playing sports, you're playing tennis, you need to wear a white t-shirt and a white short. And a lot of people don't know this with Pakistan, India में I think फिर भी बहुत चीजें
Delhi Gymkhana is the same, honestly. Like you
yeah.
have to follow the attire, वो सारा formal
Yeah.
attires जो आपका है वो
And you
it's the same.
see and people are having cigars and bureaucrats अपनी hats पहन के बैठे हुए हैं and people don't know about this thing in Pakistan, India, but abhi bhi all of this exists and
जी.
yeah, I feel like हम बहुत इधर-उधर हो गए. I just like went on my own. Was sorry
No,
for
that's
that.
perfectly fine.
हम
Love to know.
प्रोफेसर अहमद की बात कर रहे थे and
जी.
yeah, something I think यही जो हम जिमखानास की बात कर रहे थे, do you feel like कि अभी भी एक certain aspect of it would be very broad though, but when it comes to like colonialism, right, अभी भी हमारे इंडिया पाकिस्तान में ऐसी चीजें होती हैं which reek colonialism in a lot of ways, right?
जी.
Like हमारे
जी.
laws, हमारा sense of living and all. What do you want to add something to that? कि like आपका क्या
I
experience
think
है?
it's there. I think it's there. A colonial hangover is there for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the way we've adopted to, we've not even adopted. We've legit just taken English as our own language.
Yeah.
Being a
that's true.
Punjabi, हमें पंजाबी नहीं आती, हमें घर पे पंजाबी नहीं सिखाई कभी, पर English
That's
बचपन
true.
से सिखाई है.
That's true.
And that's something. My parents can't speak in Punjabi. My parents can speak in English really well. They can speak in Hindi really well. Not Hindi, Hindustani. So, as you know,
Yeah,
वहाँ
that's
पे
a
भी
Hindi
Hindustani
Urdu
ही
mix,
है.
right?
जी,
Hindustani is a
जी,
Hindi Urdu
हिंदी,
mix, yeah.
जी. They can speak these languages very well, but जो उनकी mother tongue है पंजाबी, वो उन्हें
Yeah.
नहीं सिखाई है.
Exactly.
So,
Sorry, आपकी बात
जी,
कर रहा हूँ.
no
हमारे
worries.
यहाँ I तो खैर grow up in Sindh and we also have this OA level system. India में भी होता है the Cambridge system, which is again very much colonial. But हमारा जो government system है, जब matriculation system, उसमें in Punjab they don't teach the regional language because Punjabi is थोड़ा सा slang and
जी.
इंडियन पंजाब में जब मैं लोगों को इतनी फ्लुएंट पंजाबी बोलते हुए देखता हूँ ना तो मुझे थोड़ी सी जेलसी होती है. हमारे यहाँ अरबिक पढ़ाते हैं
जी.
as a substitute for Punjabi. I have no idea why. Like, why would you teach Arabic to a kid growing up in Punjab who is Punjabi, right? And yeah, that's just weird.
Gee, no, but like particularly colonial hangovers there, the way we've actually taken up a lot of things colonial. Even the way we've obviously clubs वगैरह का जो है, they have been taken over by India and Pakistan respectively. But to maintain that old school colonial charm, what they try to maintain and they try to replicate and keep it alive. So that's there, and in a lot of ways, language being one aspect. हमने retain किया हुआ है वो colonial heritage and the colonial lifestyle that's been there. But that also comes from the fact that, while during the last few years of British Raj, and not just the last few years, before that also, the only way people could actually progress and develop more was if they took up on these colonial aspects, if they learned the English language, if they dressed in a particular way. That's the only way they could have moved forward in the administration and earned.
That's
so
true.
उस पे आ जाता है.
That's
and one
true.
more thing, sorry, you said this earlier about partition, about being fed. I just had to correct this part.
Yeah.
about being fed. You have to leave and you're not safe here. But initially, itna nahi tha. Like a lot of people decided not to leave during partition.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought, okay, we can stay, we can manage to stay and many people were actually provided protection by their either Hindu, Sikh or their Muslim friends during partition.
Yeah.
So, but for a lot of people, it was when violence took its most ugliest form that people left. But it's also important to remember that a lot of people started fleeing since like March 1947, and the migration went on till 1948, and during months forward in 48 as well. So in that sense, काफी था.
मैंने ये भी सुना है, I'm not sure you might be able to correct it. I think my grandfather tells me that कि 65 से पहले तक I feel like there was no visa regime. जो मेरे दादा ने मुझे बताया, 65 से पहले तक, even if a visa regime was in place, people used to just go ऐसे आगे पीछे, like क्योंकि बांग्लादेश से तो it's so surrounded by India. Like you have West Bengal and then you have like Mizoram and Assam and all those areas. तो जो ढाका में लोग रहते थे, they were Pakistanis, they had the Pakistani passport, but they used to just like go back and forth. कोई check नहीं होता था. 65 की वॉर से पहले तक जितना
yes. So visas were in place वो तब तक आ रहे थे. For that, I think one of the best books to refer to is Wazira Zamindar's book, The Long Partition.
Okay.
It really goes into details about divided families and about the visa procedures, the allotment. Brilliant read, and it's very, very informative. So yeah, but like visa process उस समय तक आ गया था, वो permits वगैरह हो गए थे, but it was quite fluid. Like it's relatively easy to go to India, from India to Pakistan, cross the border. Punjab side, but Bengal side, till even now the border is very fluid. Like people can very easily cross the border and do back and forth. And in fact, I recently spoke to someone, one of my house help only actually. She's from Bengal, West Bengal, India side. But she tells me that her family, her paternal side was from what is now Bangladesh. And they used to go back and forth. Like for summer vacation, they would just cross the border, go spend time with their paternal family, and then come back after a day or so.
Is it after
So
71? Like,
yes, I think before, this was before 71, and bits after 71 also it was possible. It's still very fluid. I don't know to what extent, but this was, I think,
yeah.
before 71
I think it's
that this
rather
happened.
fluid than India Pakistan than India Bangladesh.
Yeah.
Is much more fluid than India Pakistan.
Yes.
Obviously, like
Yes.
because
Precisely.
I would assume Bangladesh, being Bangladesh, would not have so much problems with like even
Ji.
yeah, coming on to that, जैसे आपने बात ही की बंगाल की, I feel like हमारे partition discourse में जितनी भी आप podcast सुने हैं, किताबें पढ़ी हैं, Bengal वाला part is often, I don't know for what reason, maybe like because of the Punjabi supremacy or something, वो हमेशा थोड़ा सा ना shadow में चला जाता है. Because in Pakistan, a lot of people don't want to talk about it because generally it's literally a moment of embarrassment and genuine embarrassment. But then again, I feel like if you remain apolitical on this Bengal Valley cheese, Bengalis went through a lot as well, and हम Bengal की बात 47 या 71 पे करते हैं, but I feel like we should start from I guess 1905, जब initially the Britishers started to just like partition Bengal on different lines, and then I think 1911 में जब वो reverse हुआ था, that's what I've read in my history.
That's correct.
Yeah, but yeah, something about Bengal, if you would like to add, how does that?
Yeah, like you're correct. Bengal ज़्यादा काफी हद तक overshadow हो जाता है. Even Sindh to that extent. When you talk about partition, main focus Punjab पे ही आता है. Sindh and Bengal tend to take a back seat. But yeah, to talk about Bengal, I think definitely because that's also because Punjab में जितना violence हुआ था, particularly during the time of partition, that was unimaginable. But in Bengal, the violence started before. If you say 1946 onwards, ही वहाँ पे शुरू हो गए थे riots, and काफी था. So you have the Great Calcutta killings, which happened in August 1946, and उसमें there was a lot of communal violence that was taking place. And in fact, I spoke to some people at that time who at the time, one of my grand aunts lived in Calcutta and she saw those riots. She was about 10-11 years old, but she has vivid memories of those riots in 46. And it was so basically different areas में different order. Like for example, in a particular area, if you have a Hindu majority, then the Muslim minority over there were facing a lot of, they facing the brunt and facing a lot of violence.
Yeah.
And the opposite was happening in different areas. So accordingly, but there was extensive violence, extensive killing, and उसके बाद से काफी ज्यादा डिटीरियोरेट होने लगा. then ripple effects में उसके नोआखली में भी शुरू हुआ violence, बिहार में भी violence शुरू हुआ, and उस तरह से बढ़ता गया. But for Bengal, I mean, to a large extent, it's a lot of migration जो अभी भी चल रही है. Migration तब से लेके, like you said, if you go from 1905 onwards हुआ, partition हुआ, and then जब वो reverse हो गया, I think things settled down a little bit. उस समय ठीक था. It wasn't largely extensively communal at that time. It was more for an administrative purpose by the Britishers. But then जो 47 में 46-47 हुआ, then काफी ज्यादा बढ़ता गया violence उसके बाद. And I've actually spoken to one or two people जो in Pakistan जो उस time पे migrate हुए, who moved to East Pakistan, and then they moved and then they went to Pakistan proper, which is now in 1971. So उधर Bengal का I feel काफी ज्यादा लंबा history and काफी ज्यादा partitions की history है. You can't just say partition. There are multiple partitions that have taken place in Bengal, and I feel उसके लिए there's a lot to understand and unravel over there, which even I'm trying to make sense of as I'm doing this work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
But I hope to do more of Bengal soon.
and I feel like partition I feel like Western discourse में अभी भी इतना important नहीं होता, but I feel like partition, if you're a historian or if you're just a normal rational person who's into history, I think an event like partition in modern history is something like ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ कि like okay in the West in Europe ठीक है World Wars हुए and all सब कुछ हुआ, but most of it was very I would say territorial and military strength and मतलब politics and मतलब इस तरह की ज्यादा चीजें हो रही थी, but हमारे यहाँ जो हुआ that was very indigenous, very localized, very I would say like colonial in a sense as well. मतलब if you look at the British Empire, apart from our part of the world, कहीं पे इस तरह नहीं हुआ. They just left on like they still rule Australia.
Israel, Palestine is there.
Yeah,
I
Israel
mean,
Palestine
Punjab
is there,
partition.
but I again yeah is I feel like Israel Palestine is the only other equivalent of our. Because if you
Ji.
look at the on paper animosity between the two countries, let's say Bangladesh, like formerly East Pakistan, and then you also look at the roots जो इतने आपस में साथ हैं. I feel like मैंने अली सेठी and एक Indian author का एक column पढ़ा था कि
Ji.
there is no other part of the world apart from Israel Palestine जो इतने ferociously policed borders. I think that was the line, and yet people are so close to each other. Like if you look
Exactly.
at all the other militarized borders, North Korea, South Korea, Israel Palestine, and I don't know what other borders are there, maybe Latin America or US के जो borders है, but there's no other part of the world जहाँ पे the people on either side of the border are so close in terms of like their culture.
You see, I think that's because our roots literally lie on the what is now the other side, because our roots are so intertwined, our roots are so mixed, they're everywhere. I can trace half of my root. I think three out. I can trace. I think 3 out of 4 grandparents' roots to what is now Pakistan. My nani is from Jalandhar, but she was in Lahore during partition. The rest of my entire family has roots in what is Pakistan. It's Multan, it's Lahore, it's Gujranwala. And I, for that reason, consider myself to be from there. I overtly say that I'm a Lahori more than a Delhiite, if not at par, if not more, because my roots are there, and somehow I feel connected to that. And that's why I said, when I met those people, when I met my friends in Kartarpur Sahib, this was the first time I was meeting them in person. I was meeting his family for the first time. उनके नाम भी नहीं पता थे पहले, but we just connected because there's so much in common. There's so much that binds us together, regardless of this border that stands between us. And it's just 6 feet border, 6 feet border, running around thousands of kilometers. And that's what divides us. I've been doing this thing since a while. I've actually been making notes of the villages that lie on the border on either side of the Ratcliffe line. I've done this for Punjab. I recently finished my Punjab. Hopefully, I'll move to the Bengal side as well of the Ratcliffe line. I'm trying to understand ke dono side border pe which is the last village that stands. And I'm not kidding. The number of times I've come across gurdwaras that are, that's one in Pakistan, and you have a masjid in Indian side right on the border. There's so many places where names are almost the same as well. And a lot of times I've come across, when I was doing this, so many times I'm just reminded of all the people I've interviewed, because their homes lie on what is now the border or the last village on the border of that particular area. And it's just really that there's so much to unravel, so much to make sense when it comes to partition and this thing that divides us. Because while it divides India and Pakistan, it really unites Indians and Pakistanis as people.
It does.
Because that's what brings us together. Like when you go abroad, like you said, desis, aap sab desi ho jate ho.
The term, you're South Asian. No one considers you as an Indian Pakistani. मतलब यहाँ पे if someone asks me, मैं कभी-कभी पता है क्या होता है, like people in Pakistan, they're listening to this, but they would probably relate to it because I'm in a very remote town of the Netherlands, and sometimes people ask me आप कहाँ से हैं, and I'm like Pakistan, and they know sometimes they're like they don't know a lot here, like it's like Northern Europe, and मैं फौरन बोल देता हूँ India. because मुझे उनको ज़्यादा उनको मसले में ही डालना. I'm like India.
जी
Like, and if
जी
they'll ask कहाँ से, मैं दिल्ली बोल दूंगा, कुछ भी बोल दूंगा, because you can't really tell कि मैं पाकिस्तान से हूँ, India से. I'm like, I'm from India, because यहाँ पे you're a South Asian. यहाँ पे
जी
फिर
that's true.
Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, to some extent even from Nepal, you just say like South Indian. अगर आपको हिंदी उर्दू आती है, you listen to
जी
those songs, आप बोल दोगे I'm देसी, बस I eat desi food and I go.
देसी देसी
That's
बस
that's
that's
such
true.
a yeah, that's also something to think about. I want to move a bit up north. अगर हम geographically देखें,
जी
have you worked on which is perhaps the most controversial part of the India-Pakistan discourse, the Kashmir wala side? Have you ever been there, or have you worked along that side of that?
I've interviewed people who migrated from what is now Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, or Pakistan occupied Kashmir, whichever term you want to use,
Yeah,
depending on where your political allegiances are.
yeah,
I've interviewed people who migrated from that area. I did that last October. Um, one of the most difficult interviews, to be very honest. I went to Jammu. So a lot of people from that area have settled in Jammu
yeah.
rather than Kashmir, because Jammu is a relatively better place to settle down, I believe, than Kashmir went after all the violence and all the brunt that they faced. Because later on, Kashmir में भी काफी communal issues हुए हैं, चलते रहते हैं. So communal, political. So I mean, I spoke to people who were there. I interviewed some of them, and from different areas, such as some of them are from Bhimber, some of them are from Meerpur, a few from Batala.
Mirpur to is on our side, right? I've been to Mirpur.
G. So that's also part of PUK Azad
Yeah,
Kashmir.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So or even Bhimber, even Batala, these are also in that same area, and Muzaffarabad. Honestly, the violence in these places was unparalleled. When I did these interviews, they were excessively highly emotional, highly difficult to talk about, because for them, I mean, partition means something different entirely. For us, partition, we have this straight border that divides us. कुछ भी कह लो भाई, let's a border
For
divides or
them, to
unites.
it's like it's not even a
It's
border.
blood.
It's just a
There's
mixture of
nothing.
mountains and lakes and
Precisely,
yeah.
precisely. And while coming back to this work I was doing while I was trying to understand the Radcliffe line, I stopped my work near Kashmir wala area, because I didn't know what to write as India, what to write as Pakistan, because it's all blurred, it's all mixed, and it's all confused and drenched under so much politics, so much hatred. That's difficult to understand I mean, that's what I do. So I try to understand what people went through at that time, what their experiences were. But over there, it's also muddled up for people. Also, they're not able to make sense of what it is. They just know that this was their home, and the way they left it. I mean, I interviewed some of them, and almost every person lost at least one member of the family during that violence, or was separated from family, or went through some extensive circumstances, or was in a concentration camp, or had to go through some or the other ordeal, which is just unimaginably painful. And to make sense of that, it was
it's hard. I get it. It's hard, especially when you're working independently. I've been to Mirpur. I think I've not gone beyond Mirpur, and I really want to visit at least our part of Kashmir as well. But something
I hope
to
you know
add to
that. Sorry to cut in. I hope you know that the Mirpur you have now is new Mirpur, and you know the story about the actual Mirpur. Okay, just to add over
I
here.
actually don't.
So what actually happened was Mirpur, the Mirpur that you have now, that's new Mirpur. Initially, Mirpur was a town right next to what is now New Mirpur, and when the Mangla Dam was built,
Yeah. That I know.
the entire
Because I
area
actually went to
flooded.
Mangla Dam. I went to Mangla Dam. I went to Mangla Garrison, which is like an army garrison, and which is kind of like protector of the dam as well, because it's like the dam lies its in purview. And then I went to Mirpur, and the only thing I know about Mirpur is कि वहाँ पे कोई भी घर पे नहीं रहता, वो सारे स्कैंडिनेविया और यूरोप में रहते हैं, और यूके में रहते हैं, because मंगला और तरबेला जब बन रहे थे, तरबेला तो खैर हमारे केपीके प्रोविंस में, बट जब मंगला बन रहा था, so all the Mirpuris now you have in England, all the guys with like side buns and all weird hairstyles, who live pretty much in Bradford and Birmingham are the
Mm-hmm.
Mirpuris from that Mirpur that I know about Mirpur.
Okay.
That's it.
जी so like just to complete the story for the whoever's watching, जो जब मीरपुर जब बंगला डैम बना, so entire मीरपुर submerged under water, and then new मीरपुर बना था. But you know something that happens is every summer when the water dries up in the dam, old buildings, houses, they're all visible. They all rise up. You can actually see them. And there's this mandir. I don't know the name, but there was a mandir in Mirpur. And uska tip abhi bhi kai बार पानी के through दिख जाता है. And when I was doing these interviews, these rounds of interviews at homes, at people's homes in Jammu, for a lot of people who came from Mirpur, I saw one picture, a framed picture of that mandir in Mirpur in their homes in Jammu. And I clicked pictures of that, but at least 4-5 homes I saw that picture, the same picture framed and properly displayed on the walls of their homes.
Okay,
That picture of
I didn't
Mirpur.
know that. I
Yeah.
remember walking in Mirpur as well, and I feel like it's हमारे एक टाउन है झेलम. अगर आप it's in northern
जी
Punjab, but अगर झेलम से आप
जी
ऊपर चले जाएं तो मीरपुर आ जाता है in like a couple of
हाँ
hours
जी
on.
जी
But
that's correct.
and then आगे जाए, then you have like Muzaffarabad, and Muzaffarabad
Yes.
जिसके बाद फिर LOC वाला area आ जाता है. But yeah, Kashmir
जी
itself, I remember watching a documentary on Kargil, and after Kargil happened, I remember this journalist, I think it was an Indian journalist, so Indian side, Kargil, I'm sure Kargil India में है या पाकिस्तान में है, like
India
Kargil town.
India
Yeah. So, and I
India
think some peaks are in Pakistan after 99. I don't know, sure.
it's नहीं it's पूरा हो गया. I think India के पास ही
Because
है,
I
as I know.
remember
I
there
might
was
be
this
wrong.
journalist in Pakistan, वो जो पाकिस्तानी side of जो भी Kargil का across the border लगता है, and उनका he was like मेरे भाई उधर रहते थे, and after 99 मैं इधर रहता हूँ, and now I can't visit my brother, and I think that was the story. मैं भूल गया हूँ पाकिस्तान के कौन सा town लगता है across Kargil, because Gilgit Baltistan and then Kashmir
जी
and Kargil is also along that area.
जी
Gilgit
जी
Baltistan तो
it's
बहुत ऊपर चला जाता
slightly
है.
it's south. Kargil is
It's out
relatively
because
south.
GB to takes you to the China wala part, Karakat
जी
wala part.
exactly.
But yeah, I remember that town, and he was like, my brother lives there, and I live there, and I think they literally showed us on camera कि वो अपने भाई को रोज wave करता है, because he used to live in a very remote, वो जो पहाड़ों पे घर बने होते हैं. And
Okay.
yeah, this is pretty fascinating, because even like Kargil itself was such a, but वो तो खैर बहुत बाद में हुआ.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just what the partition has for all of us. We are almost at the 1 hour 10 minute, 1 hour 5 minutes.
Okay.
And yeah, you have more time, then we can just continue as well. Like
Yeah, I do. Yes, I have time.
if for our audiences as well, मेरे पास भी कुछ suggestions हैं. But who is curious about partition India Pakistan से, or not even India Pakistan, कहीं और से भी, what books would you recommend? Not like academic literature, but like literature for anyone who just have a stable day job और उनको बस एक आके पढ़ना है कि हुआ क्या था partition में. You can
जी. So Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed's book on Punjab is a must. That's there. Then Aanchal Malhotra's book, Remnants of a Separation. That's a great read on partition. That's there. Then I feel if you want a fiction version, you want non-fictions, fictions as well. Non-fictions, I would recommend. Non-fictions, I would recommend Khushwant Singh's book, Train to Pakistan.
Yeah, that's a brilliant book.
That's a must. And even Yashpal's book, Jhoota Sach, which was translated in English as This Is Not That Tall. That's also a brilliant read. Then I could also recommend a few more. I mean, for Sindh, you can refer to books by Rita Kothari and Saas Agarwal. They've written extensively about Sindh during partition, and Sindhis who migrated to India. Yeah, and Urvashi Butalia's book, The Other Side of Silence, that's a must as well.
Thank you. Great. I just मैंने इतना तो नहीं पढ़ा है, but Train to Pakistan मैंने पढ़ी है, and I would recommend Freedom at Midnight, जिसका एक Netflix version भी बना था, like Viceroy's House, which was pretty much.
That was.
Yeah, did you like it though?
No, there wasn't. No, I didn't like that at all. And the kind of the perspective and historically it was.
Because if you read Freedom at Midnight,
either.
उसमें बहुत कुछ था, और Viceroy's House में they just like showed this certain aspect of Freedom at Midnight. Just but it was very dramatized, and it was very.
It wasn't even
Uh,
very accurate also, I feel,
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
when you go to
yeah.
bed. It's very one-sided version.
But
And now that,
is the story about the girl जो उनके palace के backyard में रहती थी and the guy who newly got recruited as
gee,
well? Is that true? I'm
I
not
am
sure.
not quite sure. I'm not sure. I don't know
Because
about that,
yeah, I
whether
think
it's
that
true
was
or
just
not.
उन्होंने वो इतना because
Dramatized
it was
करके.
made by Reena Nair, I think, which is like who
Gee,
is one of the best
no,
filmmakers, I think.
no,
Because
it wasn't by Meera Nair. It was by someone
it was not.
else.
अच्छा मीरा नायर की वो थी. It's also about India. That it's a novel as well. A Suitable Boy.
Uh,
I think that
A
was
Suitable Boy by Vikram Seth. That's
yeah
Meera
Vikram
Nair.
said
Yes,
that's Meera Nair. Sorry, and even I
that's
think
that's immediate post-partition.
yeah, and I think Suitable Boy is also a very even the novel itself. मतलब वो बहुत ज़्यादा highly
Gee.
dramatized है, but the novel is it's a very big read. मैंने पढ़ा हुआ है, but like A Suitable Boy is also very nice.
No, I
But
really enjoyed the web series also, though, I must say.
yeah, it was very nice. It was very
Mm-hmm.
nice. I could literally think of it as कि वो लाहौर में film हो रहा है, because the there's a certain aspect of that story as well. I have another book I'm reading these days. It's called Lahore by Pran Neville,
Yes, of
who was
course, that's
I
right.
think I have that book here with me as well. Yeah,
G.
it's called Lahore by Pran Neville, and
Yes.
he was 9 or 10 years old जब उनकी family उनको लाहौर से ले गई
Mm-hmm.
थी, and he lives in India now. He lived in India all his life, and he reminisces
Yes.
Lahore ki wo
Lahore.
memories. And to be honest, someone who's visited old Lahore, someone who knows old Lahore by heart, everything that he says about Lahore, वो उसके बाद कभी
Mm-hmm.
गए नहीं है, is pretty much true. I don't know
He
how
did
though.
visit afterwards. He did
I think
visit
एक दफा
later
उन्होंने
on.
किया था शायद. Yeah.
G.
But yeah, this is also if you want to know more about Lahore, मुझे इस book से पता चला था कि Lahore itself जो नाम है, that
G.
has something to do with Ram's sons, love or
Love
something like
and
that.
Kush. Kush. Kush is
Yeah,
for Kasur, and love is Lahore.
I
ऐसा था
had no
उनका
idea about this.
mythologically.
I had no idea about this, and I feel like a lot of Lahoris don't know about this, especially our age. Though no one knows about this.
Our age, most people don't know anything really
Yeah, this is
when it comes to tracing your roots.
yeah, this is very fascinating as well. Yeah, but we've done the books on a point. But towards the end, Rashi, if you wanna just anyone who's looking to research on partition or know about partition, अगर आपके पास उनके लिए कोई advice हो, maybe they can do different things in their life, but as a side thing, if they wanna know more about partition, how should they go about it? And yeah, that we can end it on that note.
I think if you want to know more about partition, learn more about partition, you have to, I mean, first you have an option, obviously start with your family. If there are people, you can do that if possible.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I would say read books, that's fair, that we've discussed. But if you really want to get into talking to people about partition, you need to know that it comes a lot of weight. It comes a lot of weight and it's heavy, but it's important as well. And you need to learn to listen and to be patient because they're old
Yeah.
people whom you're talking to. Most of people I speak to are a minimum of 83 years old. Recently, I interviewed someone who's about 97, so that was quite amazing as well.
97, like mashallah,
Yes.
that's like it's very young. And it
Gee.
makes me feel so मुझे especially इस चीज में इतना interest है कि when I hit 30 in the next 4 or 5 years, we will have no one who lived through
Precisely.
partition.
Gee.
If you naturally look at by the life expectancy in India, Pakistan,
Gee.
you will
Gee.
have no one in the next 5 years who
Already,
lived
it's
through
so
that event.
difficult.
Yeah.
Already, it's so difficult to find people. I mean, I started this work when 73 years had passed already. And and now 75 years have passed, and it's already so difficult to find people. So you need to know if you're doing this, you have to be very patient. You have to be aware of all the things that come with this work. And if you're actually talking to people, you need to know that you have to listen. You have to be patient in talking to people because they're sharing some of their most vulnerable times or some of their most vulnerable moments of their life, and you need to learn to respect that if you're going to do that. That's something I'm still learning. I'm still learning to listen, to be patient, and how to go about it. But as I'm doing this, I'm learning more. I'm making more sense of it, and I'm making more sense of my roots, which I feel is what matters at the end of the
Just
day.
to add on to that, आपने जिन्ना पे ज़्यादा काम किया, not Jinnah himself, but his family, because unke descendants now pretty much live in India, like through his daughter?
No, not really. I haven't really worked on Jinnah
Yeah,
Sahib
because
that
I was
much.
very
Yeah.
curious to know. I'm not sure if you know this, but the actor Priti Zinta, her
Mm-hmm.
husband, is the great
Ji.
grandson of Jinnah, if I'm not
Okay.
wrong. Because so
Isn't
Jinnah's daughter, I'm forgetting her name again. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Let me look it up. Okay, Rati was his wife, but एक second, just
isn't Preeti Zinta's husband a cricketer?
no. So what I know is that Dina Wadia, who was Jinnah's
Okay.
daughter, who when she married the Wadia into the Wadia family, the Parsi
Mm-hmm.
family in India, I think Neville Wadia. So Neville Wadia's dad, I think, I'm not sure though, but since वो Parsi family में marry कर
Mm-hmm.
रहे थे, and ironically Jinnah himself did that, but Jinnah
Ji.
kind of forbidded her daughter or something like that, and she left him. And
Okay. I'm
then
not very aware
yeah,
about that
but
history.
this is also, I'm not sure if anyone's watching and they can correct us from India Pakistan, that would be great. But she moved to Bombay, I guess, और वो एक दफा पाकिस्तान आ चुकी है 2003 में during Musharraf's era. And
Okay.
she visited
All
Kai's
right.
mausoleum, which is in Karachi, which is Jinnah's mausoleum.
Okay.
And
Yes.
unki daughter, unka beta, Musli Wadia is, I think, Priti Zinta's husband or something like that. I'll
Her
just
husband's
check
a
it again.
cricketer. Her
No,
husband's a
he's
cricketer.
एक second,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Ji.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, wait, I think her former husband then.
Okay. Could be. I'm not sure. I'm not aware about that part, honestly.
Yeah, because okay, I think it was Priti Zinta, but okay, I think okay, they probably didn't marry, they were just dating or something like that. But that was also many a because Nes Wadia, who's apparently
Ji.
the thing of the Wadia family, he was
Ji.
with Priti Zinta or something like that. But
Okay.
yeah, this is also very fascinating, right? Because a country, uska, unke founder, like our bank notes have Jinnah is everything in Pakistan,
Ji.
and
Ji.
the only descendant he had,
Mm-hmm.
unki jo aage generation hai, that now lives in Bombay. Like how,
Wow, that's quite amazing.
and Jinnah himself was a Bombay man. Like
Yes, he had a
he.
house in Bombay. Even after partition, he hoped and he thought that, he'll be able to go back to his house in Bombay
But
and
वो
keep
इतने
on
busy हो
visiting
गए
back and
with
forth.
everything, and anyone who's been with Jinnah वो बताते हैं कि he was a Bombay man from tip to toe, like
Yeah.
उनकी dressing, उनका style.
Ji.
I'm not sure आपने तो नहीं देखा होगा क्योंकि पाकिस्तान में play होता है हर साल. हमारी एक trilogy of series है. It's written by Anwar Maqsood, one of our formidable
Okay.
writers. It's called पौने 14 अगस्त, साढ़े 14 अगस्त and सवा 14 अगस्त.
Okay.
और अभी आई थी, अभी जो मैं देख कर आया हूँ, that was I think पौने 14 अगस्त or something like that. These are 3 theater plays जो पिछले 3 से 4 साल
Mm-hmm.
से आ रहे हैं. कराची लाहौर में play होते हैं. And this time it was about Gandhi and Jinnah. And
Okay.
filming is not allowed, obviously, for obvious reasons, copyright reasons, but that play tells you so much about partition. अगर
Mm-hmm.
कभी किसी को play अनवर मकसूद के काम के बारे में पढ़ना हो या something like that, you can look up that play. That play
Ji.
starts in a courtroom, and Jinnah and Gandhi in their natural, जो भी वो अपने कपड़े पहना करते थे, are standing. Like Jinnah is
Ji.
in like a 3-piece suit and a hat and a cigar,
Mm-hmm.
and Gandhi is like a 2 pieces of cloth. And Winston Churchill is addressing
Mm-hmm.
them from the court chambers, and they're
Ji.
like, "You're responsible for these many deaths." And both of them went like, "What? Why? How are we responsible?" And they're like, "Once you created these two countries, these many people have died in 2022 after 75 years." And then they're like, "Okay, we would like to defend ourselves." And then Jinnah and
And both of
Gandhi
them are
are,
lawyers.
yeah, and then Jinnah and Gandhi are taken to Kashmir, Lahore,
Mm-hmm.
Delhi, and I think Calcutta in the 2022 of these cities. और वो वहां
Okay.
जाके देखते हैं, they taken to मीनार पाकिस्तान, और मीनार पाकिस्तान में like there's this couple making out, and there's this person selling ice cream, and no one cares about partition anymore, and people are dancing, someone's smoking up, and Jinnah goes up to them, and Jinnah is like, "Isliye aapko maine azadi dilai thi, you just smoking a joint at the corner of Minar-e-Pakistan." And Gandhi goes up to them and like, "आप पाकिस्तान में खुश हो?" And they're like, "No, हम खुश नहीं हैं." And Gandhi goes like, "देखा, मैंने बोला था ना ये लोग पाकिस्तान में खुश नहीं होंगे." It's a brilliant play, but obviously it won't be accessible to anyone here as well. But kudos to the team as well. But yeah, it is what it is. And yeah, we're almost towards the end. Thank you, Rashi, for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I feel like all the people I've come across, I think Hamari age bracket been doing so much work on partition is so amazing, because people don't get this. People don't get the inquiry we have, like I to have with partition as well. And there's so much to talk about partition as well. And hopefully I don't know, like-minded people across the border can hopefully make it to Delhi. Or also, there's also one more book. He was also my former boss. It's called Delhi by Heart by Raza Rumi. He's a Pakistani. He was a Lahore civil servant. Now he's a journalist. He also runs this platform called Neador. But
even books by Anam Zakaria on Partition.
Anam Zakaria's, I think Anam
well,
Zakaria's work
47.
is pretty, Anam Zakaria's work is pretty good as well. But yeah, that was it. Any closing remarks? Anything you would like to say for friends in Pakistan or India who are watching us right now?
Thank you for having me. It was actually a pleasure to talk about partition, and I hope that I'm able to visit Pakistan sometime soon.
If I ever make it to Delhi, I'm definitely gonna bring you. I definitely want to visit Chandni Chowk and I don't know, different parts of Delhi.
I'm the Delhi tour guide then.
Yeah, and the fort and the Jamia Masjid, definitely I want to do that as well.
And if there's just another short note, I'm still looking for more people for research, for field work. So if there are people whom you know who migrated during partition, either from Pakistan to India or went from India to Pakistan, please get in touch. I would love to talk to people. You can even get in touch with me through Instagram or through my email. And I would really appreciate
caption
it.
में भी डाल दूंगा आपका Instagram and the books you're talking about मैं caption में डाल दूंगा.
Done.
It was great. Thank you everyone for listening to this, and hopefully I'll come up with more podcasts on partition as well. Thank you.